Just now. Latest news. The Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported to the American general on the progress of the counteroffensive. The Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian troops, Valery Pawnee, reported by phone to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the United States, General Mark Milley, about the situation at the front, during the offensive and the needs of Ukrainian troops in weapons. I had a telephone conversation with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the United States, General Mark. We discussed the situation at the front. We managed to seize the strategic initiative. The security and defense forces of the Criminal Code continue to conduct offensive operations. We have progress. The enemy is putting up a powerful resistance, according to a message published in the Telegram channel of the hostage. Next news. Scholz sees no danger in placing Wagner in Belarus. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that he sees no changes in the field of NATO security due to the movement of fighters, Wagner to Belarus. Earlier, Deputy Prime Minister of Poland Jarosław Kaczynski said that his country is strengthening the border with Belarus because of the presence of Wagner Group fighters there, despite the fact that there is no data on their number there. This is a situation that we are watching with great concern, but at the same time we are confident that we are able to protect our own territory. The promise to defend every inch of NATO territory during an attack applies to all participating countries. At the same time, I do not expect the situation to change at the moment, the German Chancellor said at a joint press conference with the Prime Minister of Northern Macedonia Dimitar Kovacevski in Berlin, answering the question whether he sees in the current situation a new danger emanating from the Criminal Code, Lithuania or Poland. Next news. Biden said Putin is losing in Iraq. U.S. President Joe Biden, known for his reservations, said that his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin is clearly losing the war in Iraq. It's hard to say, but he is clearly losing the war in Iraq. He is losing the war at home, Biden said, answering the question whether the June 24 rebellion weakened Putin. The American leader also said that the Russian president has become partly a pariah around the world. And it's not just NATO. It's not just the European Union. This is Japan, the head of the United States clarified, communicating with the White House pool before the athlete in Chicago. Next news. Colombia will send a protest note to Russia after the explosion in Kramatorsk. Colombian President Gustavo Petro said that the country's foreign ministry should send a protest note to Russia after the explosion in Kramatorsk, where 3 Colombian citizens were among the wounded. Russia attacked 3 defenseless Colombian civilians. Thereby violates the protocols of the war. The foreign ministry should hand over a diplomatic note of protest, the politician wrote in his blog on Twitter. According to the statement of the injured Colombians who collected information in Kramatorsk for their project in support of the Criminal Code. They were near the site of the explosion in Kramatorsk and received minor injuries. Next news. In China, they told how Russia took Japan by surprise with one step. Renaming Russia on the 3rd of September on Victory Day over militaristic Japan took Tokyo by surprise, writes Chen Hongbin, former director of the Information Institute of the Shanghai Academy of International Studies, in an article on the Guangxia portal. After the escalation of the Criminal Code conflict, Tokyo, following Washington and Europe, condemned Moscow, imposed extensive sanctions on it and strongly supported the Criminal Code, the author points out. After the aggravation of the Ukrainian crisis, Tokyo decided to follow a dark path. Until the end, he abruptly changed his policy towards Moscow and spared no effort for this, following Washington and Europe in condemning and punishing it, he recalls. Next news. In the USA, an unexpected conclusion was made for Americans regarding the Criminal Code. The UK would be much safer if they were with Russia. Such an opinion was expressed by the American veteran of Nails with Draven on his Twitter page. I just want to stand up and say what we all know, the UK and its people would be much safer under Russian banners, he said. Next news. It only happens in fairy tales. Kyiv has acknowledged the hard truth about the counteroffensive. Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of the NSDC of the Criminal Code Alexei Danilov said that he would like a faster pace of the Criminal Code counteroffensive. I would really like everything to be faster, but this happens only in fairy tales. It's hard work, every day. This is the front, this is not a walk. We need to be patient, Danilov said on the air of the UK telethon. Next news. Macron needs to specify the steps for the UK's entry into NATO. French President Emmanuel Macron said that at the summit of the North Atlantic Alliance in Vilnius, it is necessary to determine concrete steps for the UK's accession to NATO. In 2 weeks we will meet at the Vilnius summit, the importance of which is understood by everyone in the current context. The decisions that will be made at it will determine our actions in the coming years. First of all, this is the support of the criminal code, which should continue in the long term. We will need to specify the steps for the admission of the criminal code to NATO, discussions about which we started in Bucharest in 2000, he said during a statement to the media on the eve of talks with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg in Paris, which was broadcast on the official Twitter account of the Élysée Palace. Next news. Blinken said that the United States wants to coexist peacefully with China. The United States wants to peacefully coexist with China, openly approach differences and extract mutual benefit from common interests, said the head of the U.S. State Department Antony Blinken. The ultimate goal, to be where we peacefully and productively coexist. Because, ultimately, China is not going anywhere, and we are not going anywhere, he said during his speech at the Council on Foreign Relations in New York, speaking about the goals of American policy towards China. Blinken added that Washington intends to openly and directly approach the solution of existing differences with Beijing, as well as mutually beneficial cooperation where it meets the mutual interests of both states. Next news. The EU cannot simply take the frozen Russian assets, the source said. The EU cannot simply take the frozen assets of the Russian Federation, it must retain the ability to return them in full and with interest, a senior European source told reporters in Brussels. Sanctions are aimed at changing behavior, not punishing. This means that you can't just do what you want. You can't take the money and put it in your own safe. We follow the rules. When funds are blocked, frozen, it is always necessary to be able to return them as soon as the behavior, under sanctions, changes. That is, it is necessary to be able to return these funds with interest, he said. Next news. The Polish president announced the strengthening of the border with Belarus because of Wagner. Poland is ready to strengthen the already powerful border with Belarus in connection with the arrival of the fighters of the Wagner Group in this country, Polish President Andrzej Duda told reporters in Kyiv. His speech is broadcast on Polish television. The Polish-Belarusian border has been subject to a hybrid attack for 2 years. Therefore, it is strengthened powerfully compared to what it was before. The security of this border is protected by significant forces. There is a physical and electronic barrier along the entire length of most of the border, Duda said, answering the question whether he is not afraid of the Wagner Group after its relocation. This is the external border of the EU, and it is well protected by us. Of course, if necessary, it will be strengthened, he added. Next news. OPEC has stripped the accreditation of journalists from 3 Western agencies, the media writes. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, has revoked the accreditation of journalists from the Bloomberg and Reuters news agencies, as well as the Wall Street Journal newspaper, to cover the Vienna 5 conference. July 6, Bloomberg reports, citing informed sources.